with the Youth Poet Laureates is one of those examples of our work. I also just wanted to take a moment to share that this performance tonight culminates a week-long of investment in arts education celebrating young people. Just today was the fourth day of 4 days working with District of Columbia Public Schools, showcasing 90 ensembles, 2,500 students from a variety of campuses all over the city. We've had the opportunity to also present evening performances with two partnership high schools, Columbia Heights Education Campus and School Without Walls, and an after-school program, the After School Dance Fund, last week. And tonight, our project with Youth Poets Laureates as part of Words, Beats, and Life. So again, thank you so much for all that you do to support young people in their creative endeavors. And I'm so happy to welcome to the stage Patrick Washington from Words, Beats, and Life, Director of Poetry. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. How's everybody doing? Yeah. Oh, I like that. I like that. Usually you go to a poetry reading and folks are kind of sitting there with their arms folded, legs crossed, and it's like, yeah. We're not going to do that here. We're not going to do that here. Especially because we have some of the most incredible, powerful young people you've ever had the pleasure of seeing. So I'm really excited about it. Who has heard about Words, Beats, and Life? Has anyone ever heard of Words, Beats, and Life before? Good. Okay, so some of you have. So we're an arts education company based right out of here, Washington, D.C. area, and we give free classes in the elements of hip-hop. Who knows what the elements of hip-hop, the 4 elements? Ooh, come on, give me one. Jazz. Okay, close. Okay, I'm going to help you out. Oh, dance. Oh, yes, dance. Right. So B-boy, B-girl dancing, all right? Graffiti art, DJing, and MCing. All right, those are the 4 elements of hip-hop. Just always remember that, folks, all right? We give free classes in those art forms, and we also venture into poetry as well, which is how we are now the holders of the Youth Poet Laureate program for Washington, D.C., Montgomery County, and Arlington, Virginia. And you will witness these incredible young poets, activists, just powerful voices. So I'm excited, right? Are you? All right, we're going to get started with the 2023 Washington, D.C. Youth Poet Laureate presenting choreography to poetry. All right, original poem. This is going to be called Queen of the Court. It's a basketball-themed piece. You're really going to enjoy this. Please give her a hand, Sophia Hall.
Queen of the Court. 9 p.m. heat, she dribbles, slick as sleet, stealing starlight. Street lamps sputter, dim and dank like fire in slush snow. Behind her, night, pocketed, enveloping, molasses thick, her mermaid hair sleeked inside a hoop, frizzes into fishnet, white crown in the dark. Chlorine turns your hair green, her mother sighed, but she still cannonballed in, a wild thing. Toes press in tight shoes as she pounds pavement, her wheezing sneaks wag their tongues. She twirls the ball in 2 palms, a grapefruit moon revolving Earth. Her own planet, she gravity defies. Fairy queen of the basketball court, she flies, each aching rib euphoria. Quick ball change from hand to hand, pause, pivot, toe rise on 3-point line, hinged hand slamming shut, arrow shot. Soaring through lyrical slip knot, swish splitting twilight in 2.
I love writing poems about things I've never experienced. Deaths in the family, messy breakups, weddings. In my experience, years of serenading the irrational literary headaches in my head, lots and lots of ibuprofen, lots of exploring. I most love poems I have no reason to. I'm still calculating what about poetry allows it to heal better than plain English ever can. It's a poison oak language, itching into the truth, leaving me red. I think that poetry pulls back my iron curtain, describing in dirty detail all of the deconstruction. I think the poets speak in colors, address me in a way that lets none of me be transparent. For months, I wrote poems for the little woman that died, and not the three sisters that moved on from it. For months, I wrote poems from the naivety in my family photo albums. It took years for them to reach her. Sometimes, I write long, bitter monologues about my mother when I'm tired of the echolocation we do in bright rooms, when she sees me in black and white. She wouldn't understand my writing anyways, the dancing between the lines, the desperate references. In 6th grade English, I learned that the best poems show and not tell, so I'd crumble the back of the receipt I write my thank you notes to on. I'd show her how even when you unfold them, things just never return to the way they were. I wouldn't tell her anything at all. Just hope she can read between the eraser stains and the faded ink. Just hope she can read between the thin blue tightropes. I write about you. I write for you. My name is Rivka Desta. I'm super excited to be 2023 Arlington County Youth Poet Laureate. I love poetry. Poetry makes me feel seen and heard in a way that isn't negative or shameful. Poetry is a good way to be honest. Maybe I'm not always happy with the way I present myself to the world. Sometimes I wish I could go back and unsay something. But with poetry, you never have to worry about unwriting something, because there's always going to be at least one person who hears you and resonates with your words. And as long as my writing can help someone else, I'm never going to be ashamed of it. The poem that I just wrote is Writing for My Mother. At first, it was titled Poetry, and it was just about what I love about writing and poetry in general. And it kind of just shifted towards my mother, as most things do, and just womanhood and being who I am. Everything about me, I think in some way, I earned from my family. So I'm really happy with the finished product.
Hi, everyone. I have a few poems for you today. This first poem is titled Stands on White Birds. If I ever knew Barbie, and I didn't, not really, she would be crawling out of her slumber and flinging herself off the couch right now. There would be Post-it notes staining the floor with scribbled expired ideas on them, and unclean mugs would be at the table's feet. If I saw the scene in person, I'd probably think about writing a poem about how the mighty have fallen. If you even dared to resemble a home, she would haunt you intimately. When the ghost leaves, the house wouldn't be any less haunted. What are you even mourning? If you even dared to whisper a confession to her porous lips, she'd echo it. And when the truth comes back home, it's been tainted by all the other mouths it hid. What even really happened? She was sugary, a little bit burnt. She would watch the smoke come off you in the microwave and sweetly tell you taste better that way. Afterward, you would stare at your reflection in the bars of white bird cage and wonder whether or not she was right. You'd never be able to convince yourself that she wasn't. You'd never be able to wipe the black turns off of you. Still, whenever she got motion sick from going too quickly, too far in life, it would be you who'd hold her hair back over the white porcelain toilet. She'll regret things, but she won't change her mind. She'll get back on that fast lane, under the influence, look back at you, and there'd be nothing you can do to stop her, warn her, follow her. The only thing you can do is wonder where people go when they stop being loved. My second poem is titled Mushy, and this is totally fictional, by the way, so no alarms. If there's any way to define it, I think that loving you despite was an epiphany. I thought to myself that your past was mushy, and I hate getting my hands dirty, but I built you a tiny little home at rock bottom anyway. It was a large hole you dug yourself, something that couldn't get worse, but you promised me was still good. That was me looking before I leapt and diving right in anyway. I chose anyway, even with the bird's eye view of your sweaty intimacy and lips that let everything out fall forward into a hole. and then you, in a series of events in which you swallowed me whole and then licked your lips afterward deliberately, in which I ooh and ah at the glare of your forest fires, at how your lips look like they're bleeding and how gory passion can be. You were insatiable, inflatable, so I blew into you with a godlike wind so your limbs could stand a chance against the earth. When you went limp, I big bad woofed you in reverse. When you went through my straw, my brick, my bone, I rebuilt. Thank you. Okay, my last poem, when I wrote this a few months ago, was like very emotional about graduating. And just last week is my last week of high school, so. It's titled Everyone's Song. 1. Shush, says next door neighbor Billy to the falling autumn leaves. It's only now that his body has gotten used to the simmering down summer heat, but it's only now that autumn decides to make herself known again. Silly girl. Billy wants to stay in the same season forever, on the same Scott Street, on the same memory lane, living and learning in the same neighborhood, living in the same old-fashioned classroom, but the seasons pass and crash like cars. 2. The scene on her mother's fridge. Malenka, graduate cap in hand, hair curled by shine and grease and gleam. She's generously throwing out smiles to any passerbys who may catch them. Especially her tired father, especially her baby sister, the other 20 of them, the other 20. Her cousin doesn't get in the photos, doesn't smile, doesn't say cheese, but she looks back at her. You can't see that in the photos, but you can see that in the 2D memory on the fridge and everything else that she's ever lived in. 3. April Hefjeff took a gap year instead of going to college. That's not her real name. That's not her real story. Both are loud and untold. For a while, a dark cloud bloomed over her future, but the dark cloud had other places to be, and she had another person to be and see and meet and greet. There's one thing that the weather and her learned at the same time. She'll be okay. 4, 5, and others. Jaya still thinks about her ex-boyfriend Billy and anyone she's ever had a class with. When did they grow up, and when did she? Does anyone know? Does anyone wonder? Jaya still wonders about April, hopes she's okay, and Jaya's little sister and Malenka's little sister used to be best friends with the firm and fierce friendship that grew 2 legs and walked away from them, just like everything else. Finale. I thought when I was younger that, just maybe, everyone is one singular person, birthed from one singular heart, and then recovered and grew up and away into big, billion, huge pieces and people. I thought that Malenka was Billy, and Billy was someone rich or someone poor or someone more than all of them combined. I don't know. I thought at the very least that I was you and that you were me. Thank you, everyone.
I love writing poems about things I've never experienced. Deaths in the family, messy breakups, weddings. In my experience, years of serenading the irrational literary headaches in my head, lots and lots of ibuprofen, lots of exploring.
Footsteps. On the broken soil of damp woods, hopping footsteps of a girl faltered to a trudge as she spotted flowers blooming next to the whitening bones from lynching. A deep rust color, like drops of dried blood fisted in petals. Her summer ended as she laid down her flowers. On the barren, windswept lands of Manzanar, heavy footsteps traipsed toward Japanese internment camps, ringed with barbed wire, patrolled by armed men. Ancestry became a signature of rejection. Hostility authored a shady page, deflecting the glint of freedom. On the concrete road of Montgomery, Alabama, footsteps echoed in a rhythm of heartbeats, ripening into a roaring ocean. Courage blossomed from the belief that respect would revive from the lacunae in the narrative, and that love would glow in its rawest form in all directions. On the winding trail called history, countless footsteps meander through starless nights, thickening fog, chilling cold, stirring within us a longing for belonging. We journey forward, trusting the hardy steps on this scabbed earth, just as we trust the boundless blue of the sky. Hi, my name is Allison Xu, and I'm the Montgomery County Youth Poet Laureate for 2023. For me, poetry means a lot. It means freedom, contemplation, and exploring a deeper meaning of the human experiences. I write poetry because it combines my passion for creativity and my love for words. In my poem, Footsteps, I was inspired to create a metaphorical journey that highlights the human struggle and perseverance throughout history. In the beginning, the description about the girl gathering flowers, it draws inspiration from Alice Walker's short story, The Flowers, and I wanted to convey the sense of loss and pain from such brutality and racial violence. Then the poem expresses the hardship that Japanese Americans had to experience during World War II. Next, the poem draws the reader's attention to the courage and determination of those who were fighting for civil rights in Montgomery, Alabama, and the far-reaching impact of their collective action in fighting for a society that embraces justice and fosters love and respect for all. And really through this poem, Footsteps, I want to inspire people to reflect on the past, the present, and the future. Writing has had such a big impact on my life. For me, writing has allowed me to clarify my thoughts and emotions in the form of words, which is so powerful. I think that writing brings a lot of depth and significance to seemingly unimportant moments. I write each poem with the hope that my work can resonate with readers, and that it helps give clarity to those reflecting on their own experiences.
Hi, everyone. Hello. Good evening. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. I am so honored to be here to share with you some of my poems. So, as you probably know, I'm the 2023 Montgomery County Youth Poet Laureate, Allison Xu. And the first poem that I'm going to be performing tonight is titled Tapestry of Inheritance. I was inspired to write this poem as I was reflecting on my identity, family, and my cultural heritage. Tapestry of Inheritance. Before dusk, Mother intones a prayer outlining various ways we can avoid disappointing ourselves. Stiff syllables scrape against her lips as if she has been chewing the words for too long, that the only thing left are their insipid bones. At dinner, when she peels royal red shrimp shells and sets the plump meat atop my rice bowl, she teaches me how to explain my Chinese name to my friends. A bud at dawn, blessed with light, fresh like spring. Pride swells in her voice, though her tongue still refuses to bend properly to the English sounds. At night, Mother reads me Li Bai's 静夜思 in which homesickness is puffed up by frost-like moonlight. She passes her nostalgic notes to me for a memory floating with misty edges, a memory I have never owned. When she looks at me, her eyes reflect like a lake where I see the image of her younger self more than myself. My thoughts project to the bruised light of that dusk when she first set her feet on this land with a mixture of longing and loss, a feeling that stretches and flattens into her fingerprints, impalpable, ingrained. When her hands stroke mine, my heart wanders with hers, and soft silence settles upon our shoulders. Moonlight streams in from the edge of the window, gentling the angular corners of her old suitcase. Thank you. And the second poem that I'm going to be reading this evening is titled Acorns. It explores the loss, pain, and aftermath of violence and trauma. And writing this poem was a way for me to clarify my thoughts and emotions using words and to process my grief from mass shootings. Acorns. My backyard is an echoing shell as acorns clatter down onto the roof, rolling over, touring around the earth scabbed with darkened leaves. Hollow sounds of randomness, as if somewhere crackles with pain. In our screened porch, my dad sits reading the news on his iPad. His hibiscus tea has turned cold. Another mass shooting, he sighs. This time it is in St. Louis, Missouri. Earlier this month it was in Wisconsin, Mississippi, Louisiana. Not anywhere near me, but should I feel lucky? Pieces of the world are crashing down like acorns, hitting somewhere that could be anywhere, time and time again, before the spilled blood congeals into memories and the groan of grief sinks into the musty dirt. Another acorn rolls down with a thud. I force myself to relax, but can't stop wondering how many more acorns will fall, choking the earth into a night without a heartbeat. Thank you. My next poem is titled Lemon. It delves into the story of a young girl as she grows out of the innocence of childhood and into young adulthood, and how she must conform to societal norms and expectations. Lemon, after Arthur Z. When the wind trembles through the limbs of ash trees, when the petal path wears into barren fields kissed by the bruise of dusk, when the gleam of Christmas lights dims into the tone of sepia, when a chill steals your breath and finds its way into your bones, when you pass the empty stone seat where the boy you had a crush on used to sit, when the town you were so familiar with recedes into a haze of drizzle, when syllables fumble to your lips and drown in the haze of the city, when the smudge of self-denial bites into you and becomes a scar, when you pull on your mother's high heels, feet craving for oxygen, when you strain your cheek muscles to arrange your face into a perfect smile, when your fingertips graze the creased cover of your sketchbook, when you listen to the solitary songs of a mockingbird on sleepless nights, when you teeter to find the rhythm of your life, here is a lemon to squeeze a drop of bitterness. Thank you. And my final poem this evening is titled Sky Lanterns. It's about freedom, something so simple, yet so beautiful and so valuable. Sky lanterns. When the night devours daylight, frost edges the window panes with pale blue tinges. A feeling of isolation curdles into suffocation. We venture to the dirt clearing that surrounds the ice-coated lake. Chill closes over our shoulders, bleeds into the crevices of our hair, seeps into our toes. Our hands cradle the silk paper shells wrapped around ring-shaped wire frames and light the small burner sitting at the center. A burst of illumination, the air inside drenched in rich colors of persimmon. We stand on tiptoe and fling our arms up, releasing the sky lanterns, watching them drift upward with cooing sounds, like a flock of birds fluttering out of a cage. Dancing, they pull against gravity and warm the smothering darkness to studs of gold. We strain our eyes to trace the waving glimmers that wink and shrink into sparkly dots, craving for the simple joy of freedom. Thank you. So those are all the poems I had prepared. Thank you so much.
This September, and already the neighbor's front yard glow of dragon breathes fire and reminds me of the elusive costume I must. Moss, hair, an ugly shin bruise, whatever you want me to be. A blue, oversized fur coat from Buffalo Exchange on 14th Street, the green street sign that says 14th Street, a hubcap on the side of a road, a woman barreling over Niagara Falls, wonder of the world. A full streak on Duolingo, an A+ in calc, dark chocolate and hazelnuts, a waltz in the rain, peach fuzz. Opening up a narrow-necked San Pellegrino bottle, the cracking fizz, or August fireflies flitting out of my outstretched fingertips, like little snickering kids on Halloween, toting pillowcases filled with Twix, ringing doorbells and shortcutting across front lawns. Let me be them for one more year. Just one more year. Let me wear a costume with lots of ropes and ties and zippers, something that takes care and time to take on and off, a costume that reminds me to take a breath and to slow down. Hi, I'm Sophia Hall, and I'm the DC Youth Poet Laureate. I write poetry because, for me, it's healing. It's a chance to take all of my emotions that are just kind of bubbling up inside of me and translate them to the page and process them and heal. I was inspired to write the poem Slow Down because it was my last Halloween as a child. And I've been told ever since I was in 5th grade and I was 5'5" that I was too tall for trick-or-treating. But I was with my little brother and I wanted to assert myself as a kid as someone who deserves to have fun and to play and still experience joy. Also, it's a pleasure and it's a privilege to be joyful because some people, like I have relatives who are in Ukraine right now. They're currently in a war zone and they can't be joyful and they can't play because that's their reality and that's their life, and it's really hard to be here in such a privileged position where you can be joyful and then you have to deal with both of these opposing worlds. I think that poetry has always been a part of me, and I've used poetry as an outlet to process my own emotions and my own grief and have it live outside of myself so that other people feel like they're not alone in what they're struggling with.
What's up, Kennedy Center? I'm gonna try something out. I say poetry, you say rocks, okay? Poetry. Rocks. Poetry. Rocks. Poetry. Rocks. I know that's right. So the first poem I'm going to read is about my mom, and I wrote it for Mother's Day. Who here loves their mom? Just make some noise. It's called The Absolute. Say that the storm will soon cease, and the oars we use to paddle back to shore for shelter are just our words, reaching out across the abyss. Say that those words will one day become more than just whispers, that speaking is not just for saying sorry. Say that all this waiting and weathering and whining wasn't for nothing. Say that you will hold me through the night. Say that I am a spoon and you will be my bowl. I will only ever hold a fraction of your sorrows. Say that when sleep creeps up the stairs like a cat with giant yellow eyes, we will surrender and reach out to stroke its humble head. Listen to sleep's sweet rumbling purr. Say that when love comes barreling at us like a pothole, we will hold on to the handlebars as best we can. Say that you will let me stay and write poetry for you in exchange for a soft pillow and an empty journal. Say that you will let me stay in the cupboard underneath the sink or above the washing machine. I really am quite small. Say that we will turn our struggles into strength and our wounds into wisdom. Say that the glow in the dark stars you pasted on my ceiling can light the glow in the dark stories I write. Say that we are radioactive stardust decaying at a rate so fast it seems like we are standing still, silent, unable to indulge in anything but the quiet, gentle, gravitational tug between mother and daughter. The pull that says, there is no love softer than this. Thank you. The next poem I will be reading is called Genetics. And you've met my mom through that poem. So this poem is a little bit more insight into my own identity. Genetics. My mother weaved the wheat fields blossoming beneath the Caucasus Mountains into my flax hair. I am a museum exhibition curated by magpies. My grandfather's crooked nose, his protruding ears, crescent scars, snapdragons opening and closing like giant St. Bernard mouths. I broke my left arm 3 times. There is an impact on the earth where bone met dirt. I count my brother's freckles under anemic hospital light, blood streaming onto snow, half moons of current. I am falling, tossed overboard, rain sinking teeth into skin. I pick at the bumps on my chin, unrooting, erupting, asleep under an ash blanket for millennia. Wake up! The man shines a flashlight into my eyes. The clock glows 4 a.m. There are sirens outside. My mother sits and plays Uno in her hospital gown, reversing the depression with lithium pills. She comes back 2 weeks later. I stay awake and chant Krov Kipit, blood boils, because womanhood is a staircase winding, the X chromosomes entangled in bed sheets. So I stare at Buttons by Carl Sandburg, because I once met that sunny man, shook his blonde hand, pretended that he wrote poetry for me, that I kissed his cheek backstage, an ensemble girl, always giving away status, never taking any for herself. The peonies bloom for 1 month in May, so sit on the brick and bury yourself until they wilt. Redemption comes from tears and pleading and then a bowl of cut-up fruit. So open the window, let the chill air sweep in and the rain patter gently. Peel the skin off of a grape, exposing the inside, a quahog, a soft tongue, the womb and the blood. But most of all, remember. Thank you. So in that poem, you heard that my brother has a lot of freckles, but he's more than that. He's more than just his freckles. He's also a poet, and he's an 8th grader at GDS, and he recently won the Parkmont Poetry Prize, and I'd like to invite him to come up and read his poem that was called Ode to Dumplings. I think it's just so important to see poets of all ages, and I'd like to highlight his poem because it's especially joyful and fun.
Hi, I'd like to read my ode. It's called Ode to Dumplings. Ode to Dumplings. Dumplings, little packets of satisfaction and joy, bathed in a bowl with the salty sauce of soy, clouds that contain chicken and cilantro of jade. When eating you, my happiness will never fade. Dumplings, laughing as you boil in a pot, the amount of sweetness that you hold is a lot. As you cook, your smell steams a savory scent. To my tongue, your taste is lent. Dumplings, you look like white fluffy snowballs. You are a common favorite food in malls. Your skin is a blanket warming you delicious insides, running down into my stomach on a slide. Thank you very much.
Good job, Vic. That was some brother-sister teamwork there, right? Thank you for supporting poets, especially the young poets. And we're all just here to use poetry to make change in our community and engage people like you in important issues. So the last poem I'm about to read is called multiple choice. And it has 4 parts to it. There are 4 answers, A, B, C, and D. But there is no right answer to the question, what is the national anthem? I could have kept listing it. And there's no right answer for you to choose. I just want you to think about the message and enjoy the poem. Multiple choice. What is the national anthem? A, the song that binds and stitches gaping wounds. 2 sides sewn back together on Super Bowl Sunday or high school homecoming. The tuba players, the solo soprano, the audience that stands hand over heart listening. The song that sustains and softens. B, hesitating, keys in the ignition halfway turned. The gas money dwindling, the prices rising, smoke lingering in the air, pipes rusting over, frost on the ground. It will be a hard winter, my mother sighs. Bundle up. I peer down and notice my bare toe peeking out from the black sock. C, bang, chanting, no justice, no peace. Bang, insurrection, the glass storefronts in Georgetown boarded up. Bang, there are riots, says the news. Bang, Parkland, gay bars, nail salons. Bang, say their names, George, Brianna, Ahmad, Tamir. Bang. 4, my grandmother cooking in the kitchen today. Every day there is soup, chicken simmering there on the stove. Here is a bowl. Take a spoonful, potatoes warm, onion down the throat. Have some more. Here there is always plenty to share. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your night. What's your name?
I'm Layla. Sorry, I'm Layla Jackson. It's nice to meet you guys. So it's really good to be here and really good to talk to all of you. Yeah, thank you for being here. Can we give them one more round of applause? Well, the first question that I had is I wanted to ask, what do you think the importance of poetry is in today's world? Like, why do you think it's important?
I think that poetry is really important because it's the most powerful agent of change. Poetry not only touches the heart, but it also changes the mind. So by writing poetry, by reading poetry, by sharing poetry, we're sharing a new way of thinking, we're sharing new perspectives, and we're sharing a new way of thinking about the world.
Yeah, to me, I feel like poetry can really, really allow people to learn and connect with the world in ways like never before. When you read someone else's work, you can really learn about and read about their experiences, maybe their dreams, their hopes, their cultures, so many aspects of different people and poets that is just so valuable in poetry.
I'm kind of just stealing from Sophia and Allison, but I think for me, poetry is like a persuasive essay. Normally when someone says something, if it's not said in a meaningful way, we totally forget it or disregard it. But the most powerful and creative words are what we remember. So if I'm ever trying to get someone to remember something or believe my argument, I'll like say it in a beautiful way, kind of like gaslighting, I guess. But yeah, I think that poetry is really persuasive and powerful.
That's beautiful. Another question that I had is, I'm really inspired by all of you guys. You're in great positions as Youth Poet Laureates of your respective districts. So I wanted to ask, how have you used your position as Youth Poet Laureate during your term to create change in your community?
One of the ways that all three of us have made change is we went on a Youth Poet Laureate library tour where we went to some of the DC public libraries in the afternoons and worked with elementary and middle school kids and taught poetry workshops. That was really fulfilling. And I had a great group of 7th graders at Palisades Library that were super into poetry and also Shrek. So I had them write poems about Shrek. It was a blast.
Yeah, like Sophia said, we went on a tour in April, which is National Poetry Month, to various DC libraries. We gave poetry performances and workshops to really spread kind of our love for poetry among the youth. And I really do feel like a lot of them, some of them, it was like their first time writing poetry in a long time. So they really got to get into feeling of writing a poem again and really the thrill of writing one.
That's beautiful.
Okay, I feel like I need to go first because you guys keep on taking what I'm saying and it makes me look really bad. But like one thing I said is that when you start with people early, that's the biggest way of getting to them. So starting with youth and letting them know that what they think and what they write matters. Also, I think that it's really groundbreaking that all of us, we have like an audience now, so we can say something and it isn't just going to a void. I spoke, I think, 1 month ago or 2 months ago about Groundhog's Day, which is actually just a poem about seeing the brighter perspective and being happier about things. And someone came up to me afterward and they're like, oh, that was really meaningful to me. Like, I feel like you heard what I was thinking and that was everything to me. I think just sharing a thought with someone and having there be positivity in that is amazing.
That's lovely, and that's really what I think poetry is like all about.
I totally agree. Just promoting joy and literacy and love of learning among young people. It's really great.
Yeah, and I want to also share like one of the specific experiences I had during one of my library poetry workshops too. There was a high schooler who was kind of forced into the workshop, like because his parents wanted him to learn more about poetry. And I asked him, when was the last time you wrote a poem? And he said, I don't know, like 3 years ago. And he said it was required for like his English class. And in our workshop, we had a time where everyone could write their own poem. He wrote a poem about a pencil. And he loved it. He thought he was only going to write like maybe like 2 or 3 lines at first because he didn't even know what he was going to write. But as he wrote, he was writing like a full page of just his poem. And he was so excited to share it out loud with everyone else in the workshop too. So I think that really touched me and saw like the impact that writing poetry can like spark in people.
That's so heartwarming. Can we get snaps for that? I'm going to share a similar experience. I've been leading workshops. Well, I led one workshop. It was called the Anthems Youth Poetry Project, and it was basically, it was an online workshop, and I gave all of these kids poems to respond to, and they responded to these poems so beautifully, and had And they commented that they felt inspired and fulfilled and reflective after the workshop because they felt that they had been part of the greater conversation that is poetry and part of the poetic lineage and part of the history of poetry. And that was really cool.
That's lovely. Allison, you mentioned earlier about the thrill of writing a poem and like how it feels to get your thoughts down on paper into a poem. Do you guys want to talk about what the process of writing a poem feels like for you?
I'll go. Sorry.
Yeah, Ripka goes
Yeah,
first.
Ripka's my territory. For me, it just feels like there's all this gray matter, I guess, like words scrambling around in my head, and I finally get to put it down in a way that's maybe prettier or more beautiful than what I actually had to think. And it's really warming, and I'm forgetting the word now, but I like feel so proud of myself. If anyone wants to hop in and tell me the word, I forgot I needed the microphone. That was really embarrassing, but yeah.
I think the way you described it kind of sums it up perfectly. Like when you're, like for poets, and I guess this applies to like pretty much everyone, but it feels like you just have a lot of information, like gray matter in your head, just like a lot of details, maybe things you took notice of that are kind of like jumbled. But I feel like poetry is such a great way to kind of organize that, like sort out in your brain and really do some deep reflections on yourself, what's meaningful to you, what's meaningful to others, and being able to put that into words on a paper and even share it with other people.
The most meaningful part of writing poetry for me is the mindfulness, and I really resonated with what you said about reflection and self-reflection. When I sit down, at first it's like in my brain there's a rattling pinball, just ping, 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 thoughts everywhere. And then I sit down in front of my blank Google Doc or in front of my blank notebook, and I start writing and piecing together thoughts and ideas that haven't previously been connected and drawing similarities between different life experiences. It's just so magical. It's a truly magical process. I feel like poetry is magic. That's how I would describe it.
And one thing I also wanted to say, sorry about that, is I also like that when you write something, you throw it out to the world and then someone else can catch it. Like the phrase gray matter, 1 week ago I would have never said. My English teacher just says it all the time, and then I caught it, and then I started repeating it, and then you said it, which I thought was really cute.
Yeah, I definitely feel that way a lot, like talking to people and picking up what they say. I think that is also fundamentally a very poetic thing, and I think it's really nice that you brought that up. Something else.
Oh, I just wanted to add on that my multiple choice poem, the last one that I read, it was actually inspired by Ada Lamone's poem, A New National Anthem, and she's the current U.S. Poet Laureate. And I wrote that poem in response to her poem before I even knew she was going to become the U.S. Poet Laureate. And now she has a poem that's going to Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, on a spaceship. That's crazy. Poetry is going to space. We made it, y'all.
That's actually a great segue into the next question that I was going to ask, which is just like, what was the inspiration behind the poems that this wonderful audience got to hear today? Like, can you talk a little bit about what inspired you to write about what you wrote about, what inspired you to use the word choices, the imagery that you used? I'm really interested in that.
Should we call Victor back up here to hear what he has to say about dumplings? He's shy. Wait, Patrick's coming over to you.
For the microphone. Oh, is it not working?
It's okay. Then we'll find Victor later to hear more about his creative process.
Here we go.
Well, when I wrote the ode, I'd actually eaten dumplings the night before, so that kind of fueled my inspiration. I just converted my love for dumplings into poetry writing.
Yeah, for me, you guys might remember my poem Lemon. Who remembers that poem?
I do.
Okay, nice. Wow. So that poem Lemon, it's you may remember it's about a girl growing out of the innocence of childhood and into her young adult years. So a lot of that was inspired kind of by my own experiences as a girl currently in my like teenage years, growing between childhood and adulthood, and kind of what's been my experiences and observations during this stage of life. And you may remember that there were a lot of details in the poem after each when. And I found or thought of those details just through like the little moments that interested me in life, even if I never noticed it before. Just taking notice of like the small things in life that can be so meaningful, and that's what helped me like write the details and like write my poem.
That's lovely. We do only have a few minutes left, so in our last like 3 or 4 minutes, I wanted to end on how can you guys use or think about or write poetry to help foster joy? Because that's something that I feel like we all really need to focus on. We all really need to have a good heart for, a good mind for. So yeah, how do you use poetry to help foster joy?
I heard this quote once. It was, "Whimsy is the weapon of the oppressed." And that really stuck with me because I thought about how centering joy and centering whimsy in our poems and in our poetry and our words can help combat the feeling of hopelessness that so many of us, especially including me, feel in our current world and the current state of affairs in the world. So by writing poems that are more joyful, that have happy experiences, that make other people feel happy too, it's kind of laughter and happiness is contagious and infectious, and we want to spread happiness and joy.
I think that poetry is a good way to make other people feel what you're feeling. So if I'm feeling happy, it's a good way to make other people feel happy. One thing I've always loved doing, and I think it was one of the first few times I started writing like more poetic forms of writing rather than just writing, is I used to write like really long birthday letters for my friends, just like saying how I feel about them and this is how I want them to feel about me in the way. And then be like, Rivka, this is really good. And I'd be like, okay, well, maybe I should make a career of it or something.
Well, thank you guys for coming out. Can we give them one last round of applause?
And one for Layla too.
Yes, our amazing moderator. She's done an amazing job.
Best facilitator ever.
Thank you. Well, it was lovely to talk to you guys, and I'm so glad that everyone else got a chance to hear from you too.
Have a great night.
Have a great night.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us at Millennium Stage. For more information about the upcoming Millennium Stage programming, please visit us online at our website or on Facebook. As we prepare for another performance, we ask that you would head to the back area behind the stanchions so we can safely clear the area. If you would like to meet with the artists, they can meet you at the back of the house. Thank you, and we hope you enjoy the rest of your evening at the Kennedy Center.